All right, in all areas of life, as we know, government, Hollywood, schools, teaching, education, military, business, home life, sports. We have people who can manage well, people who can't. It's good to look at the reasons why, make sure we can see some things in ourselves, good or bad, improve, see things in other people, learn about how to recognize a manager who's horrible and you want to stay away from. And if we can get some principles, it'd be good in a company or whatever, get some principles, institute them, and so they'll help keep and retain the good people, and then help people who are kind of middle stay on solid ground. And then it's a little like strictures, like kind of chains on some people who have problems and aren't the best ethically or cognitively. So good stuff. Very important. We know everyday life, a lot of people have bad managers, horrible, aren't treated well. And we got people who are great managers, take care of their people, develop them, respect their professionalism, things like that. Do things like what's called for in extreme ownership in, by Jocko and another author. Sorry, I forgot the name right now. I'll put a link in the description field. And we should work for root cause analysis, extreme ownership, take responsibility for everything. We can't take responsibility for the weather, but we can't take responsibility for planning for it. We can't take responsibility for failure of all equipment, but we can take a responsibility for preparing for it and having plan Bs and all that. Extreme ownership, root cause analysis, commitment to the truth, some very important things. So, but then of course, there are some people who aren't as good managers, need help. We need to constrain them, put some confines on them so they don't affect the rest of us. To some extent, some of that becomes like whistleblower stuff and all this. Sometimes locally, geographically, or local in chronologically, local time, there could be a lot of people who are a problem. As we see through history, Salem witch trial, Nazi Germany, communist countries, stuff in the Middle Ages, different places all through history and all on the earth. Got some little local stuff like that can happen, little local aberrations, local irrationalities, but for the most part, we need to constrain that, and if we constrain it, maybe we can help prevent some of that bigger stuff from happening. But it's good to know about leadership incompetence. What we can do is look at traits of incompetence. We can get some stuff and generalize from there. So in looking at whatever, I don't remember, and I don't remember if I learned about like Jocko first, the ex-Navy SEAL, but found out about the book. I don't remember what led to this, the book Extreme Ownership. Good book. And that led me to listen to a podcast that Jocko was in. And then he mentioned this book. What was this guy's first name? Let me see. Dixon, yeah. So in this podcast, I don't remember which episode and stuff. I gotta maybe look at that and find it if I can. On the Psychology of Military Incompetence by Norman Dixon. There's some stuff in there that's good. I'm listening to that book now. I'll have to listen to it again, maybe take some notes or something. But really interesting. Discusses military incompetence and military competence, which of course, we're talking about human beings. We're talking about organizations. We're talking about the qualities of someone that leads to mistakes and destruction, and the qualities that lead to good things. So we can generalize from it. Doesn't matter if it's military, it's human beings in an organization involving management and practice. We can generalize from it. So, one thing in this book, it's interesting. In what is it? Section 2, part 2. Part 2, chapter 13. Mr. Dixon gives a list of 11 things they found. As he says, some stuff, blah, blah, blah. 2 questions that occur. Is there any common pattern to this incompetence? And if there is, whence does it arise? Is there a pattern? What's the cause of it? You look at all these cases of incompetence. Is there anything in common? We're being scientific. We're doing what the Greeks did, ancient Greeks. We're back to Thales, looking for the one in the many, the commonality among all these things, the underlying principle or principles. Is there a pattern? What's the cause of it? So, basically, that's about what science is about. What is it? What does it do? What causes it? What is it? What does it do? What causes it? As he says, as a first step towards answering these questions, let's summarize the data contained in the foregoing chapters, the previous 12 and all that. In brief, then, military incompetence involves, then he goes on to list them. And these aren't all consistent and together necessarily in one person. There can just be a preponderance of them. So some of these could seem to be contradictory. So we need to understand that. He's just looking for patterns and stuff that happened in the past. So, number 1, military incompetence. A serious wastage of human resources and failure to observe one of the first principles of war, economy of force. This failure derives in part from an inability to make war swiftly. It also derives from certain attitudes of mind, which we shall consider presently. Okay, I'll try to copy paste in the description field too if I have room. So I need to put link to the book in the description field. Do the 11 steps. Stuff about who Dixon is. And whatever else I said. But number 1, waste of resources. We'll just call it that. So, of course, in other areas in business, it's not paying attention to fundamental principles of business. Ignoring one of those. Wasting money. Basically, I think this comes about from not taking reality seriously. Thinking someone's above it. Comes up through history. Some people think they can't be defeated. We're perfect. They're inferior, so we can't be defeated. And that's, I think, what some of the Nazis and some other people thought. We're superior, they're inferior, so we're going to win. And some people who run some companies might be like that, not caring about people or things and not taking reality seriously, not taking clients or employees seriously as they should. And some of that, will come up later when we discuss this more when we see some of this other stuff. Number 2, a fundamental conservatism and clinging to outworn tradition, an inability to profit from past experience, owing in part to a refusal to admit past mistakes. It also involves a failure to use or tendency to misuse available technology. Okay, so we'll just say it's so the basic idea here is sticking to ideas regardless of experience. because someone can't profit from experience, they don't really learn from it, from fundamental the fundamental base of all knowledge. So, what was called this? It's basically Platonic thinking, but I'll just say, since he's using these words, conservatism. In the sense it is some kind of conservatism in thought, maintaining tradition. We could put some of that, like, I use tradition, since conservatism has some kind of meanings to some people. Tradition, okay? Sticking to tradition, things someone has learned in the past, not learning on their own, basically. You know, what happens if you cling to outworn traditions? Someone's clinging to other people's ideas, not their own. They can't learn from experience. Learning from experience and knowing that's part of the scientific method is one thing Galileo and Newton did to see how science really works. Some people didn't know what science was in the past. They had a lot of mistakes, had to figure things out, and so they made mistakes like Plato and Ptolemy. Number 3, a tendency to reject or ignore information which is unpalatable or which conflicts with preconceptions. So, ignoring experience. And I think we know this from, in some ways, or shall I bring this up in a different one? So, kind of tradition, in this one, it's like some people tend to stick to some idea in their own head, regardless of reality. They get some idea about how they feel, or some errant, illogical process leads them to some conclusion about a person. It's totally wrong, and they go claiming that that person is that way. It comes from something like this. Someone ignores information and sticks to preconceptions. I could do that too. Ignore experience, stick to preconceptions. Could put it either way. So they stick to prejudice, error, mistake. I'm sure we've all seen some of that. You've had bosses, or in high school where you got people lying about you, making stuff up, not being based on experience. And then a tendency to underestimate the enemy and overestimate the capabilities of one's own side. So, as I said, that is like some of what some Nazis thought. They thought the British were inferior, the Americans were inferior, other cultures were inferior. It was a superior race, so they had to win. Or the mistake some communists make, we're thinking, oh, the proletariat is the superior, the future cultural power, and so the others are inferior. The proletariat are going to win. The proletariat are going to win, they thought. So, invalid. Just some preconception, some like prejudice on their own side. So here, underestimate the enemy, overestimate themselves. We can call it something like self-glorification. Remember to think about it like as a group, not like so much the person. So our companies can do the best no matter what. They're horrible. It doesn't matter. Things like that. And then here's one that doesn't really go with some of the others. So, it's like going to be with some people and not everybody. This is so Dixon found trends or common characteristics among lots of these people, but not necessarily everybody. So the next one, indecisiveness. Indecisiveness and a tendency to abdicate from the role of decision maker. And this comes up in the book and other things he does, and like a way in which this can come up. Now this will be a little different. Never mind, but here some of this will come up though. Blaming other people for things that go wrong, not having extreme ownership, wanting to pass the buck, point fingers so someone else takes the fall instead of oneself. If you set someone else something like that, then you can point a finger and say it wasn't my fault. Not something some people need to maintain their preconceptions and prejudice. Make themselves look good. It's like, if I would have done it, it would have come out fine, but they didn't, so it's wrong. There's a certain dishonesty again there. Number 6, with obstinate persistence in a given task despite strong contrary evidence. So, some obstinacy. Again, you got this important issue of not paying attention to evidence, to facts. And you notice how students will find this, they know how this comes up on the partisan teachers that won't listen to a student that claims something is a case which is not. And I mean, here, I'm going to have to take some people to task. Teachers who do that, you are irresponsible. You need to get your crap together. The only way we're going to make society better, which it is the teacher's responsibility to do, is to do it in the classroom and start teaching people how to handle stuff like that. So get your crap together. Get out of the classroom for a while, learn to shut up, or don't learn to train yourself. Have a process so that you put up or shut up. If you can't defend a certain position with facts and reasoning, shut up, please. Because you are one of the ones who are ruining the culture, keeping the stuff going forward, and it ain't good. So please. And again, someone's like that in the military, people die. It's not a little tiny matter like, oh, who cares? It's just a little thing, and we're talking, and why get worked up about it? Because people die. If you don't care people dying, you got a problem. You're like a psycho or something. So please, don't be a psycho. Be a good human, please. Damn. Shouldn't have to say that to an adult. And then freaking apologize. Get over yourself. If you did something wrong, you did something wrong. How the hell are people going to start to stand up for what's right if you're not admitting you're wrong sometimes? Do it. Okay. So don't persist in talking crap about some students when their evidence is already obviously there, because if you pay attention, the students know you're wrong and you lose respect. Same thing with managers. You're out there, you're doing something, well, you ain't very smart because people know you're wrong. You can be lost in your own little head, but you're wrong and people know it. So please don't do it. It's better for you and better for other people. Be a good human being, please. I said please. So pay attention to evidence, please. Number 7, a failure to exploit a situation gain and a tendency to pull punches, I guess pull back, I think, rather than push home and attack. Okay? So 7, not, what's the word? Aggressive, offensive, something like that. Not, or what's the phrase, old saying, make hay while the day's good, or make hay while you can, or something or other, I forget exactly now. It's old and rusty in my brain. I gotta oil it and get it working again. But so, or yeah, like strike while the iron is hot, as they say. And for those who don't know, in working a piece of metal, you got an anvil and a hammer, and we've probably all seen that. You got a blacksmith doing something. You want the metal hot, so it's more flexible and pliable. You can do stuff with it. If it's cold, not going to work. It's going to break. Strike while the iron is hot. Don't sit around and dilly-dally and do nothing. Number 8, a failure to make adequate reconnaissance. Boots on the ground. And again, here, they don't make adequate reconnaissance because they don't care about reality. They don't care about experience. They're perfect. They got these ideas in their head. They got the perfect strategy. And Plato even said himself. So this is like, I wish Dixon would have had more knowledge of philosophy and put more of that in it. It'd be great. But the book is on the psychology of military incompetence, not on the philosophy of military incompetence. Things are what they are. A task is what it is. Stick to that. But it'd be nice if you would have had some philosophy in it too. At least like a chapter at the end or something. Because Plato specifically says to do science, you got to turn away from experience because perception, experience, they mislead. They're illusory. They're lies. He thought you can't get real knowledge from them. And that's why you see more why Plato and Ptolemy failed to do science and held it back for a long time. Aristotle was the founder of it. He's the one that said all knowledge comes from the evidence of the senses, or as St. Thomas Aquinas phrased it, nothing is in the intellect that was not first in the senses. Galileo, Newton got that and made use of it more than even what Aristotle had ever thought of and done. So they were able to develop modern science and see how science is really done, develop experimentation and things like that. But here, they're not looking at reality. A failure to make adequate reconnaissance. I'll just say no reconnaissance, but it just means not enough. Well, that's long. I guess I'll just write inadequate. Okay, number 9. A predilection for frontal assaults, often against the enemy's strongest point. And then we'll see, okay, number 10. A belief in brute force rather than the clever ruse. In other words, acting instead of thinking. That's kind of what a lot of these people did. They're anti-mind. They're not about thinking and independent thought. They think brute force rules. Might makes right. And so just like try to go over these people who are inferior to us. Don't reason with them. 11, a failure to make use of surprise or deception. And so you can see 9, 10, 11 kind of go together. So number 9, frontal assaults. 10, brute force. 11, oh, there's 14 on 11. So as you can see, they go together. People use brute force instead of using in the military, in battle. You're talking about people's lives. So some people don't care. you got these inferior people working for you. They're just stupid soldiers. Who cares? Or a manager can think, oh, you got stupid people working for him. You know, I'm better. I'm like the manager, and they just need to do what I say because I have this great mystic insight. You know, as it says here, they cling to certain traditions. They have ideas in their head. They're not getting things from experience. Or, you know, if they do, it's like kind of like fake stuff. It's not essential to how they think and process. They might throw some examples out for you. But as Plato thought and some other people, if you need an example, you're kind of stupid. Just like, literally, German scientists at the time of Ohm, who came up with Ohm's law, V equals IR. School dude, high school teacher, discovered the law, V equals IR, through experimentation. Published his results. German wannabe scientist dismissed his result because it was from experimentation. They said, you don't need that. If you get it from experimentation, it's wrong. We get things by pure reason. Okay? It's in the historical record. A lot of people have thought like that, unfortunately. Still with us today. Teachers, administrators, managers, maybe some CEOs, workers, some people in the military. Too many college professors. Something needs to be rooted out of systems if we're going to be successful and be good human beings and not be some kind of thing that, like some puppet to someone's ideas in their head. Or you can see the way some people use fake pseudoscientific reasoning is like in Monty Python's sketch, She's a Witch. So I'll have to put a link to that. That's great. Humorous, funny, but sad, but so insightful about how some people fake thinking and fake reasoning into a pseudo-reasoning process, and they're fundamentally irrational. But, so here, we got people using brute force. You know, so in some situations, some manager, they could just be yelling. They're not physically attacking, but they are yelling and they're trying to put their prejudice into other people and not let other people see experience. They'll try to stand between you and reality. Take my word for it. That's the kind of person to be scared of because they can't back it up. You know, in some situations, we got to say, take my word for it, because it's an emergency situation. Sometimes there's information that could, if it's spread, it could endanger people's lives and stuff like that. But for the most part, not a good thing to do. Again, if you got to look at the situation, look at the context, look at the causality. Why would they be saying that? Is there a good reason? But if someone says, take my word for it, don't. Be skeptical. You know, if they say, take my word for it for now and we'll go over it later, okay. As long as they do, and they have a track record of doing so. But again, always qualify the conclusion as, or their claim is, I'm skeptical. Maybe. But, some of these people use brute force, and if we get this from the military in an abstract way, like I said, some managers will yell, falsely accuse, try to use social pressure, brute force instead of reasoning. If they're trying to say something about somebody and paint them to be a certain way, what are the facts? Slow down. If they won't slow down and give their reasoning, they're wrong. There's got to be evidence, certain claims. So you got to have a final claim that has claims subordinate to it and supporting it. Some claims support these, some claims support these, and so on, down to experience, down to the evidence of the senses, the actual facts and observations. So 10 to 12, or 9 to 12, again, it's like using brute physical force or emotional yelling or social manipulation instead of reasoning. 12, we got an undue readiness to find scapegoats for military setbacks. So, irresponsible. It's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. No, take responsibility, please. 13, a suppression or distortion of news from the front, usually rationalized as necessary for morale or security. Oh, it's for the best of our team. We can't let people know. Don't say this. It's for the best of our department, the best of our school, the best of our company. Is it really? Or are you a liar trying to hide something, you know? Why do they want that? In some cases, yeah, like in the military, things cannot get out until after the fact. You got to be careful. You're talking about people's lives, things like that, so be careful. But think about, or if your boss says, don't tell anybody else, just talk to me. No, there's something going on. That's right, that's wrong. There should not be a suppression of news locally. If things are okay, it should be able to be shared. So, when someone says, don't tell anybody else, tell somebody else. Because they've got a problem and something wrong is going on. 13. Cram it down here. Suppression. And I've heard about that in some cases where if you go and you talk to some people and they say, you're the only one that says that, well, you're not. You need to talk to other people because they're probably going to be saying it too. That's one thing. If someone says, you're the only one that says that, then there probably are other people saying it. So, 14, a belief in mystical forces, fate, bad luck, etc. So 14, it's kind of like being irresponsible. Finding scapegoats. 14, we'll just say against free will, against choice. And I'll have to put it over here on the side, running out of room. And that is a fact in some military situations. In fact, what did the Nazis say, the communists, in their dogma, in their fighting? They said it's historically inevitable that the proletariat will throw off the bourgeois. It's historically necessary in the nature of the universe. In other words, there's this fate. There's this outside force making it happen. Or the Nazis, I forgot exactly about some of that stuff. I have to look into it, review. Maybe I forgot, maybe I don't know. But there was the fatherland, and they were trying to make a perfect society. Given some similar influences between Nazis and communists, philosophical influences, Hegel, Immanuel Kant, the Nazis, seems to make sense to me that they would have thought something like that too. Okay, but it says some or all of these several aspects of incompetence have played a significant part in the military mishaps considered in earlier chapters. It remains now to show that they have a common ideology, a common cause, and can be understood in terms of complex interaction between the nature of military organizations and certain features of human personality. And then he goes on to discuss some of the points there a little bit. But, again, this is what Norman Dixon found and discussed in his book on the psychology of military incompetence. Unprincipled, waste resources, follow some traditional thinking, and remember that's short for, it could be something in tradition or something considered tradition in that person's life. Basically, it's something someone, in this context, I'm thinking someone memorizes and obeys without understanding. It's not a first-hand owned, developed principle. It's something like imposed from the outside, and that plays into being anti-choice. There's some like fate or luck involved. And you know, that's what some people have thought. There's a certain fate to what they do, and they're just carrying it out. And that's like part of like what Hegel said that influenced Nazis. There's certain, like, some people believe that there's a certain strong man that comes on along every now and then, just molds reality to their desires. It's a bunch of Hegelian nonsense, totally irrational. And they're just expressing cosmological forces or some silliness like that. But unprincipled tradition, remember there's different ways you can think about that. Tradition kind of things someone's memorized in their life, or traditions of culture. And again, it's like knowing something versus a understood principle, understood idea. They stick to preconceptions, ignore facts. There's some kind of self-glorification of their group. Sometimes of self. Oh, I'm so awesome, I can never make a mistake. And then they ignore it, the experience of when they do. And then indecisiveness, passing the buck, blaming other people, obstinate, sticking to certain things regardless of reality. They do not strike while the iron is hot. And yeah, I should have put this instead of do not. A failure to exploit a situation. So that inadequate reconnaissance, they don't look at reality before making decisions. You know, you're bringing people to war, and that's the basic idea. Before you do something, reason it out. Have evidence and supporting claims for your main claim. Boots on the ground. Learn what you need to for teaching a class, working with a student, judging an employee, judging an administrator, judging a principal judging a teacher. Put up or shut up, do your reconnaissance please or no, because we're talking about people. Okay? In a company, we're talking about people, not things. Do your reconnaissance? No. Who you're talking about, what the context is, why things are happening, and what the facts are. For a decision, do your research. And then prefer frontal assaults. Go for brute force. They don't use like surprise, interesting tactics. Because again, this is to be thinking. And they have a tendency not to think and to worship force. That's why they're bound to tradition. They don't have independent principles. They're following just certain ideas in their head. And that would go with this. They're not independent thinkers. Don't take responsibility. Believe in some kind of outside fate. They're anti-choice. And they suppress facts. I can fit that in. All right, so there they are. 14 things that Norman Dixon found in summarizing data contained in the chapters 4, chapter 13. So this is things about military incompetence, which, as I say, obviously can be expanded to manager incompetence, administrator incompetence, teacher incompetence, principal incompetence, department supervisor incompetence, CEO incompetence, sports manager incompetence, and so on and so forth. But good book. I recommend you give it a listen to delve into more about competence and incompetence and learn to see what he's saying about the military and practice drawing abstractions from something, getting an idea and generalizing it to a broader context. Peace.